It's a natural inclination to want to destroy what we fear, and there is nothing in the world more fearsome than the great white shark. But these huge predators are a natural part of the ocean ecosystem. They weed out unhealthy marine mammals and prevent their populations from soaring out of control. And perhaps their value is not just utilitarian. For many of us, the knowledge that these magnificent animals swim in the oceans of the world makes life a little more interesting, a little less tame and homogenized.
The Bloody Triangle. It lies along the central California coast. Here, about 3 shark attacks occur each year, all of the work of one species. The great white shark, a fish which can grow to 20 feet long and weigh more than 3 tons. It's a superb predator, fueling its huge bulk on warm-blooded prey, like seals and sea lions. The waters of the California current are cold. To survive here, marine mammals have grown large and well insulated. Sea lions can reach over 700 pounds. Male elephant seals can weigh as much as a white shark. Yet the great white has developed the means to catch and eat these creatures. Its prowess as a hunter evolved over millions of years. In fact, ancient sharks first appear in the fossil record over 400 million years ago. One species, Carcharodon megalodon, reached 60 feet long with 7-inch serrated teeth. A smaller version of this giant, the great white shark, appeared soon after the dinosaurs disappeared. During this time, mammals became common in the ocean. White sharks evolved alongside seals, dolphins, and whales. And today, white sharks are found where most seals live, in temperate waters. The white shark's preference for mammals has led to occasional attacks on humans. As more people enter the water to swim or surf, encounters with sharks rise.
There are some things that a white shark does that are entirely predictable. That predictability might allow us to save human life. And that's what I've been trying to do over the last 10 years.
At the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco, Dr. John McCosker talks with filmmaker Julia Whitty about the study of white sharks.
And this is one of the major research collections in the world of preserved fish specimens. They're from all around the world.
As director of the Steinhardt Aquarium, McCosker has access to over 1 million fish specimens collected over the last century, including white sharks.
Here is a fish that was caught by a fisherman, a very young, immature male. It was brought to us, but it was dead by the time it arrived here. And we're going to save it and take measurements, study the specimen, and then you can figure out the growth of the very young fish by accumulating data about them.
But preserved specimens of the great white shark are all that any aquarium can offer. No one has been able to keep a white shark alive in captivity.
These will be here, I hope, for hundreds of years for future scientists to study.
How old are some of them?
Some of these sharks are probably 50 or 60 years old.
Recently, McCosker succeeded in transporting a live white shark to Steinhardt.
I guess this is the holy grail of every aquarist, and that is to see a live great white shark. As life-threatening as a white shark is, it's just a baby when it comes to getting it out of the ocean and getting it into an aquarium. Remember, if you will, it's one of these shark species that must swim in order to breathe. So how do you get a fish out of the ocean and tell it to hold its breath long enough to get it to the aquarium?
For 3 days she lived here. Thousands of people lined up for their first look at the shark named Sandy. Though she had been tangled in fishing nets, when she arrived she was still strong and healthy.
She swam around the tank, and we had hoped to keep her alive, and she seemed to be doing better and better, but she had great difficulty in the tank, and we discovered later that she was having difficulty with an electrical leak in the tank, and it was confusing the shark. And we had a shark that was responding to it and banging its head against the tank wall, so we made the decision to let her go while she was still alive.
Disappointed, but determined not to risk the shark's life, McCosker arranged for Sandy to be released at the Farallon Islands. She may swim there still, but so little is known of the behavior of white sharks that no one can say for sure.
It'd be nice to know if the shark that bit someone in San Francisco is going to be in Oregon next month, if there's a migration, if there's a movement, or if there's a resident population. The question that should be answered is, what is the movement within the lifetime of a single individual white shark? How often does it need to feed? So if one has fed, and we know how many there are in a certain coastal area, we can make a prediction on when it's going to feed again.
Information which might have helped one survivor.
You know, I looked up for the boat, and then I just yelled, "Shark, I've been hit."
Most of what we know about sharks relates to their physiology rather than their behavior. Unlike other fish, sharks don't have true bones, but instead have skeletons made of cartilage. Their skin is covered with scales, like small teeth. These scales make sharks hydrodynamically silent. In other words, their prey may never hear them. The brains of sharks are comparable to birds and mammals. In some learning tests, sharks rate as well as laboratory rats. But it's the shark's ability to detect electrical fields that gives it a predatory edge. Sharks have special organs in their snouts, called the ampullae of Lorenzini. With these organs, sharks are capable of detecting 1/1,000,000th of a volt, less than the charge produced by living animals. Most sharks are long-lived and slow to reproduce. Some may not even reach sexual maturity until 20 years old. Some sharks maintain their body temperatures above that of seawater. This warm-bloodedness improves their speed and agility, and from all accounts, their victims never see the shark before the hit.
As I went to go back up, I felt this unbelievable power just grab a hold of both my legs. Just went right up to the surface, just shook me like a rag doll. He had both of my legs in his mouth. First thing I saw was the shark. I was hanging out the side of his mouth. I looked, and we were just in the water. All I could see was this water thrashing around. I figured probably about 25, 30 feet down is where he actually released me. It might have been a little deeper, you know, because it seemed like it was a long time getting up. But I didn't realize how bad my legs were tore up. And, you know, I didn't have any power in them, and, you know, it just felt like I wasn't coming up, you know, I was trying to swim up, and then, you know, finally I hit the surface, and I looked up for the boat, and then I just yelled, "Shark, I've been hit." All of a sudden his eye moved, looked, and when he looked at me, boom, spooked. That's the last time I seen the shark. He just spooked and disappeared. Never saw him again. Then my friend came, grabbed the hold of the back of my tanks, and he pulled.
The damage to Rochette's legs was enormous.
They asked me how big it was, and I told them it was thicker than I was tall. I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine, but I'll tell you, this thing actually looked like a whale. I mean, you know, it was just awesome, you know. And then from some of the teeth they actually took out of my legs, they looked at the teeth, and they figured about 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. I mean, this was a giant animal, you know.
Amazingly, his femoral artery was not severed. 2 teeth had missed it by a fraction of an inch.
The shark let me go. I didn't get away. I mean, you don't get away from anything like that. I mean, I guess they said he just didn't want me that bad.
But the question remains whether or not white sharks actually want to eat people. speculation persists that white sharks mistake people for seals, and realizing this mistake, spit them out. But evidence now suggests that where people are in the water is more important than what they are. The Point Reyes Bird Observatory is conducting a pioneering study of shark attacks on seals at the Farallon Islands off San Francisco. 2,000 hours of observations promise the first scientific understanding of the relationship between white sharks and their prey. This is the period when elephant seals come ashore. As they approach the islands, they must run a gauntlet of waiting sharks. On average, 1 seal a day doesn't make it. This graphic footage of actual shark attacks on seals is the first of white sharks taking their prey.
The very young seals, as they return to the island, there's this high-risk zone very close to the island where attacks occur. 90% of the attacks occur within 400 meters of the island, very close.
Older animals probably already know the safe route and avoid this high-risk zone, which is characterized by a rocky bottom.
And drift away from the island, and there's some
Clemley believes that the distinct coloring of the white shark, dark on top and light on the bottom, plays a role in the attack.
I believe that the shark may be a cryptic predator. They've evolved a color pattern to be seen, and that they may habituate the prey to that appearance, yet just prior to feeding, swim to the bottom where they're cryptic and then dash to the surface. We never see the shark prior to an attack. The advantage of attacking from below is that if he swims over a rocky background, he would be indistinguishable because of his dark dorsum to the prey on the surface.
To counter the shark's strategy, seals might avoid the ambush by swimming only over a sandy bottom. Young, inexperienced seals are probably the most vulnerable. And yet, as with all predators, the white shark is an important population control.
It's very possible that there is a major effect on seal and sea lion population. What's so interesting about it is that they may occur on a single size class or age class at a single time in a small area, and this may influence the whole population greatly.
Yet ironically, after the hit, the shark itself may be vulnerable to attack by other seals.
I think at Southeast Farallon Island, when there's an attack, the seals if they detect the predator, they may mob it.
Mobbing is a common reaction by animals to harass and drive off a potential predator. In this footage, dolphins mob a 10-foot-long hammerhead shark. Sea lions, too, are known to mob sharks, barking at them underwater and ramming them with their snouts. So clearly, seals and other animals are not helpless in the presence of sharks. But today, a deadly new threat lurks in the ocean, one which neither seals nor sharks can defend against. Its effects are truly devastating. Drift nets, a new form of fishing some have likened to strip mining the ocean.
They're setting the nets to catch swordfish and thresher sharks. Everything else that swims into the net is incidental kill, and these animals are thrown back as waste.
Howard Hall has spent the past 15 years filming sharks and the seas they inhabit. But nothing a shark can do is remotely as grisly as the sights he's seen in the drift nets.
typical drift net is a mile long. It's suspended about 30 feet below the surface and down to about 110 feet. And any one night there might be 200 of them out there. So that's 200 miles of barrier set up in the migratory patterns of these large pelagic fish as they move up and down California. And the nets that we dive would have maybe 2 marlins, maybe 3 or 4 thresher sharks on a good night, and 50, sometimes as many as 100 blue sharks. This is where you saw manta rays, sea lions, many other things. And the blue sharks and all the other incidental kill were simply thrown back as waste. The fishermen don't know any better. They would kill these sharks so that they wouldn't foul their net the following night.
White sharks, too, fall victim to the massive overkill of the drift net. In the North Pacific alone, fishermen set 40,000 miles of these nets each night.
The sharks are just disappearing. They're disappearing relatively rapidly. And the unfortunate thing is that, unlike dolphins, you can't create any sympathy for them. But you kill, 1,000 sharks a night in the drift net fishery off California coast, and either people think, so what? Or they think, well, maybe that's a public service.
Shark meat has also become a familiar sight at fish counters and restaurants.
Sharks are being overfished worldwide. They've become a good consumer food source. 15 years ago, if you saw a shark on the menu, you'd be horrified. Usually because you'd think, oh, if I ate that shark, potentially, several generations down, I might be eating somebody's foot. And people didn't want to eat sharks. But in recent years, it's become well known that sharks taste very good. Unfortunately, sharks reproduce very slowly. They live to be very old. Many sharks live to be 60 years old and longer. We don't know how old. So when you start taking them out of the environment, they don't replenish themselves quickly.
And white sharks are no different. That is, people have killed white sharks either for so-called sport or out of fear and ignorance. And it is entirely possible to eliminate white sharks locally from an area where their presence is necessary.
I think it's good that we got the great white shark out there, because if we didn't have great white shark out there, we wouldn't have any abalones out there. And that's the truth. And that's about the scariest thing. 90% of the guys don't go out there in the deeper water because of the great white.
And white sharks do more than control the numbers of abalone divers. They perform a vital role in the ecosystems of the ocean.
As top-level carnivores, it's important that white sharks exist for the health of the entire system. And so as soon as you remove white sharks, then all of the seals and sea lions will have the opportunity to survive without predation. And that, too, is not even good for seals and sea lions. I would hope that the white shark might serve as a metaphor for the importance of the fragility of life on Earth and in the oceans. Even a fish that's so dangerous that occasionally it kills one of our species deserves to live and, in fact, must live.
For those of us that dive a lot, you might think that we would rather not have sharks in the ocean because if we didn't have them there, we wouldn't worry about being bitten. Not that we really worry to begin with, but the truth is it's kind of nice to have an animal out there that's big and powerful and poses some threat. It provides a little thrill.
Despite our fear, or perhaps even because of it, great white sharks deserve a place in the ocean.
It just enriches our lives through the diversity of having these wonderful, awesome creatures here. But I think that someday people are going to think, it was really neat. Once upon a time there was an animal out there called the great white shark that was 3,000 pounds and reached 17 feet long. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see something like that? And it may not be too far in the future when you'll be able to dream about that and never see it except maybe on television.
For some, it may seem a macho thing to hunt these animals down and bring them to shore to hang up for a snapshot. But for those who have really studied these incredible animals, For those who dare to enter the water to film them face to face, the best way to appreciate great white sharks is to let them be what they are, huge and wondrous predators. In the end, it turns out the great white sharks are in far more danger from us than we are from them. This is Ted Danson. Thank you for joining us.
The New Explorers next follows the final days of a 5-year project in the Amazon basin to confirm the discovery of a new species of bird.